because I thought I'd missed the well. This was now into something more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it felt like a reflection. Felt like whatever.
I don't know, after it was over, you're with somebody.
Oh,
It's just, oh,
yeah. Right?
come on.
That's all I need to do something to pump me up now, right?
That's why I look forward to it.
Aw. Oh, I might have to revise it now. No, just kidding. Don't we have anyone to lay Chalice, do you? I know. But you might have overheard something. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Into our new place? It's been almost a year. August. Yeah. Yeah. We've done enough entertaining to feel like we've settled it. We know how to do that now. You know what I mean? Like, that's a whole new thing. So. Okay, but then what do I say? I need to say about it.
Yeah.
What? Okay, that's fine.
And you can just hang out up here before the service and then go back to your seat at the Chalice.
First, what do you think? Oh, one of the reasons. And then, what do you, by the way, say about you as far as your role with Hurd? Good morning. Good to see everyone on this glorious morning. My name is Amy Collins. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a worship associate and a commissioned lay minister of this congregation, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Cleveland. We acknowledge that we're gathering today on the lands of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabeg peoples, also known as the Three Fires Council, which is comprised of the Potawatomi, Ojibwe, and Ottawa. The Native Land Project also lists even earlier tribes, including the Erie, Kaskaskia, a part of the Illiniwek Confederation, and Misaga, a subgroup of the Ojibwe tribes. I bid you welcome, whether you are here in person, watching live as it unfolds virtually, or playing catch-up at a later date and time on our YouTube channel. In case you're new to our community or to Unitarian Universalism, let me tell you a little bit about us. As Unitarian Universalists, one of our core principles is recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every person. As a community, we recognize the interconnected web of all existence. As a pluralist faith, we're happy to have you join us, whether you celebrate the earth, which we're doing this summer, the goddess, love Jesus, follow the teachings of the Buddha, or find your inspiration and comfort from the reliability of science or humanist teachings. Our covenant with one another transcends race, gender identity, sexual identity, financial means, age, and all of the other elements of who we are that some might use to divide us. We especially welcome any guests who are worshiping with us for the first time today. If you're interested in learning more information about who we are, we invite you to fill out one of the guest cards in the pew racks in front of you. You can place a card in the offering plate when it comes around later in the service, and we'll be able to reach out to you and answer any questions you might have about our congregation. Or you could also visit our website if you're online and want to reach out to us there. On the back of our website, by the way, is uucleveland.org. On the back of your order of service, we still have a QR code. It'll take you to our contract tracing form, so you can take a moment to do that before you leave today in the land of not quite post-COVID. And we're about to enter into sacred space, so please do silence any of those wonderful electronic devices, or as my colleague would say, put them in worship mode. I'm going to have you join us in our chalice lighting, which is our covenant, and our pal Donna Hertzberg is going to do that for us this morning. You're going to be hearing more from her later in the service. She's been involved with our Ministry for Earth group, as well as one of the folks that helps with our permaculture garden. So Donna will light the chalice as we say it together. You can find the words on your yellow cards, which have been updated. We cultivate trust with one another by celebrating differences, honoring boundaries, and offering compassion and care. We listen to each other deeply with curiosity and wonder. We speak for ourselves without need to defend ourselves or persuade each other. We create safe and brave space for healthy conflict, creativity, and fun. We reconcile through forgiving and making amends when we hurt one another.
Thank you, Donna. And thank you, Amy. Good morning. I'm Reverend Randy Partain. My pronouns are they, them, and I am delighted to be with you in worship today, whether you're here in person or joining us online. We gather together to connect more deeply with one another and perhaps with ourselves, to be reminded of our values and empowered by a community of people who strive to live into those values more fully, to practice the simple act of claiming our own experience and curiously seeking to understand the experiences of others, to wonder about where our stories come from and what we might get from telling them, and perhaps to relax into a sense of belonging that frees us to prioritize relationships over being right, secure in our siblinghood with one another and the planet we share. May we worship in that spirit together this morning. We're going to sing together hymn number 317, We Are Not Our Own, in the gray hymnal. But before we do that, I invite you to take a moment and greet the people around you. If you see a face that you don't recognize, make a special effort to ensure that they feel welcome today.
When do you want to do a refresher
And it is this sense of belonging with and to one another that we share our joys and concerns each week. If you are joining us online and you'd like to share any joys or concerns you're carrying with you today, you can put them in the comments below the video. And if you're here in person, we place stones in the water to acknowledge those things that we carry with us into this space. Today we place a stone of continued healing energy and positive vibes to David Cantor as he regains energy and strength post-surgery. He has appreciated the calls and texts and visits. A stone of gratitude to Debbie Wright and to Donna Hertzberg for collaborating on today's service and the multi-gen RE activities afterward. And a stone that may or may not be able to fully embody all of the excitement and grief and hope and sadness as Aaron Fountain moves to be fully invested in a new position in Washington, D.C. We'll be able to celebrate him and bid Aaron farewell after the service. A special stone wishing a happy sweet 16 to Sophie Watkins Happy birthday, Sophie. And a stone of healing to the partner of a friend of Peggy Lagodny, who is in intensive care with a rare virus. I invite you to come forward if you have other joys or concerns you'd like to acknowledge this morning. we place a stone for those joys or concerns that were shared online today. And a stone for those things that we continue to carry in the vaults of our hearts. And a special stone of thanks to Alan, Georgia, who gave me the language, the vaults of our hearts.
I'm a firm believer that every one of us is touched in some way by someone close to us, a family member, a friend, or a close colleague who struggles with mental health issues, substance abuse, or a history of trauma. Suicide has a strong relationship with all of these. I've personally lost 3 friends over my lifetime to suicide and know many who still bear the devastation of loss of a loved one to suicide. The Ohio Suicide Prevention Foundation works tirelessly to prevent suicide by seeking to reduce the stigma of suicide, promoting evidence-based prevention strategies, and raising awareness about suicide's relationship to mental illness, alcohol, substance abuse, and other issues. Their community-based programs and best practice resources are specifically designed to improve mental health across the state. And thanks to a combination of education, training, and support, they're helping all of Ohio's communities reduce the risk of suicide and lessen its effects on family, friends, and neighbors. Please support the life-saving work of this foundation by giving generously within your means to this morning's offering. As always, you may do so by using our Cash App, which are using today's date and plate or the name of the organization in the notes. You can find the handle in our order of service, or if you don't have an order of service, it's $UUCC 44122. Thank you so much.
Now is the time to put aside our differences. Now is the time to stand as one. We are stones of two attention preserve and all nations work together. It can be done. Take care of our earth. Take care of our earth. Now is the time to fight for our rebirth. Take care of our earth. Take care of our earth. Now is the time to fight for our rebirth. Now is the time. We are begging, pleading, calling out to save our future, and our voices will be heard. Now is the time to put aside our differences. Now is the time to stand as one. Take care of our take care of our take care of our now is the time.
As many of you know, we are test driving some different musical responses this summer, and so this is one of the candidates for a regular offertory response. This one is a little bit special. So are we going to sing it through one time just for familiarity, and then the second time, Mike? Okay, we'll sing it twice through.
Native people speak of the gardening style of growing corn, beans, and squash together as the three sisters. There are many stories about how that came to be, but they all share the understanding of these plants as women, sisters. Some stories tell of a long winter when the people were dropping from hunger. 3 beautiful women came to their dwellings on a snowy night. One was a tall woman dressed in all yellow with long, flowing hair. The second wore green, and the third was robed in orange. The 3 came inside to shelter by the fire. Food was scarce, but the visiting strangers were fed generously, sharing in the little the people had left. In gratitude for their generosity, the 3 sisters revealed their identities, corn, beans, and squash, and gave themselves to the people in a bundle of seeds so that they might never go hungry again. Robin Wall Kimmerer expands on the wisdom of growing these 3 crops together and how they strengthen each other and provide a healthier growing environment than any of the crops alone. She also recognizes that the 3 foods complement each other in a delicious meal. She continues, "They've all brought their gifts to this table, but they've not done it alone. They remind us that there is another partner in this symbiosis. She is sitting here at the table and across the valley in the farmhouse, too. She's the one who noticed the ways of each species and imagined how they might live together. Perhaps we should consider this a 4 sisters garden, for the planter is also an essential partner. It is she who turns the soil, she who scares away the crows, and she who pushes the seeds into the soil. We are the planters and the ones who clear the land, pull the weeds, and pick the bugs. We save the seeds over winter and plant them again in the next spring. We are midwives to their gifts. We cannot live without them, but it's also true they cannot live without us. Corn, beans, and squash are fully domesticated. They rely on us to create the conditions under which they can grow. We, too, are part of the reciprocity. They can't meet their responsibilities unless we meet ours."
I don't suppose it's terribly difficult to remember to plant corn, beans, and squash together. But it's easier to remember why if we have a story behind it. The story gives us a reason to tell others about putting corn and beans and squash together in the garden and how these sisters are going to collaborate together if we give them the right environment. We tell a lot of stories about our relationship with the earth and where the earth came from and how we came to be here and what our role is supposed to be. A lot of religions tell us that in our creation stories. We have a variety of different creation stories. If you go on Wikipedia and look up creation stories, you'll go down a rabbit hole that'll take you days. But they fall into some general categories. Some of the early creation stories talk about the gods creating people as helpers. You know, in the Old Testament, in the Jewish scriptures, in the Old Testament of the Christian scriptures, God creates a garden and then says, well, I don't want to take care of this thing. I'm going to create some people, and they're going to take care of it for me, and they're going to be my helpers. Not exactly. Sometimes people are made from the blood of the gods because they're special in some way. But when we look at those creation stories, they tell us something about the expectation of our relationship. They tell us that people are supposed to have dominion over the earth in some cases. Or maybe that we're supposed to be stewards of the earth. Those are two very different things. Having dominion over something or being a steward, caring for it. But both of them kind of put human beings above whatever it is that we're considering the rest of nature. It sets us apart. We're either having dominion over it and we have control and we can make it do what we want, which is what a lot of times we try to do. Or we're above it and we're stewarding it and we're caring for it in a way that sets us apart from it. We don't think of the earth in a lot of these creation stories as being our stewards and caring for us in the same way, in that reciprocity that Robin Wall Kimmerer is talking about. And of course, some of the stories that we tell now about the environment are very different. Human beings are maybe a virus on the landscape, or that human beings and nature are a bad mix, that we are the worst thing to ever happen to earth. Maybe we haven't been treating that relationship very wisely, and so it seems that way. And I think that some of this comes from a desire to care for nature. We hear a lot of things, a lot of warnings about nature. When you walk out in nature, we took a walk over by at the Beaver Marsh last evening with several people that I see in this room. And we had a wonderful walk. There wasn't an instructive lecture or anything else. It was just time to be present. And there's a sense of separateness sometimes when we walk in nature because we've heard warnings. You know, you don't want to touch a baby bird because then its mama might reject it, and so you want to leave it alone and stay away from it. It's not entirely true of all baby birds, but that's the lesson. It's better to be safe than sorry, right? You don't want to touch certain plants because, you know, you're going to get a rash all over you if you take the poison ivy out of the permaculture garden, unfortunately. Ask Del Salza about that. Nature can seem very threatening sometimes, and it can seem like we need to hold ourselves apart from it. Not touch it, not let it touch us, because it's dangerous. And there's just enough of it that is dangerous that seems like the wisest thing to do. But if we're bold enough and we interact with nature, then we might feel the velvety texture of a petal, or run our fingers along the ridged veins of a leaf if we know what that leaf is, and we know that it's not going to hurt us. We might feel it, touch it, be in contact with it. We might press our hand against the bark of a tree and just be with it. and it won't hurt us, and we won't hurt it, as long as we don't start picking the bark off and trying to do something else with it. It takes a little bit of wisdom and maybe some preparation. People who get their hands into the earth and allow themselves to be connected with it in a deep way might feel a different kind of relationship with the planet than others of us. Maybe we even see ourselves as cultivators, that we are helping the planet in a way. Even that can be kind of a power over situation. We're going to cultivate the earth so that it does what we think is best. We're going to guide and direct an ignorant environment to become what we want. There were some invasive species along the riverbank that they had a little sign about. They grow prolifically in that environment. But you know what they don't do? They don't help with flooding. The native plants that would have grown along that riverbank would have helped a lot more when there was a lot of rain, when the waters rose, and when there were flood dangers. The native plants had a place there. They had a role to play, a natural role that nature had invited. And somewhere along the line, a plant from another part of the world got brought over, and it turns out it can take over. Those native species can't really do their job because this other growing plant that I'm sure somebody thought was a really good idea to bring over here. It probably seemed like a really, really smart thing to do. There are Melaleuca trees in Florida because somebody thought it was a really, really bright thing to do. They really thought a lot about those trees. And now they're trying to figure out how to get rid of them because they just take over. Sometimes when we try to guide an ignorant environment, we're not as wise as we think we are. Robin Wall Kimmerer points out that we've developed pesticides and chemical fertilizers and all kinds of artificial ways so that we can grow things the way that we want to as monocultures, so that we can just grow one thing and have it succeed and have it thrive. And it makes sense to commercial enterprise that we're going to just grow one thing and let it grow and thrive. But if we pay attention to what the earth is communicating to us, we might become more wise and realize that we could cultivate things differently in a way that didn't require all of that artificial stuff, like in a Three Sisters garden, where we grow corn and beans and squash all together because they help each other be stronger. They help each other fight off pests naturally. They help each other thrive because they're together. It creates a nourishing environment without any other artificial interventions. So do we want to control nature? Or are we willing to see ourselves as siblings, as a fourth sister to the Three Sisters garden, or as a sibling in other spaces? An equal partner with Earth, something that we can learn from and also something that we can contribute to. Because that Three Sisters garden needs the human touch as well. There are some things for people to do in that sense. It's not that we just stand back and watch nature do its thing. There are ways that we can partner. So what do we need to do to be a good sibling to nature? Maybe think differently. Maybe observe things before we decide to take action, to spend time getting to know the place around us. Maybe we need to speak differently too. When we start speaking about cultivating things or being a steward or having dominion over, maybe there are some things we can catch in our own language that let us know we may not be framing this relationship as healthily as we could. When we start speaking of ourselves as being apart from nature, maybe that communicates something to us about how we are seeing that relationship that could change, soften, evolve. Being equal to as a part of nature, living with and because of and in service to the natural world. Somatically connected, physically, and some might say that's a sacred relationship. We might find God in that connection with the natural world. And not being afraid for nature to touch us, but being wise about how we are in contact with nature, trusting that nature can teach us healthy ways of being. And if we do that, how does that translate into our relationships with one another? Where are there places in our relationship where we try to cultivate other communities of people or other individuals? As parents, we kind of have to do that. We are cultivating young lives. We're hoping that they grow and mature, and eventually we won't be cultivating them anymore. That can be really a period of grief. That can be a sad time when we are no longer cultivating a life that we've spent years cultivating. But that's the goal, right? But in other spaces, we try to maybe be stewards or cultivators or have dominion over people because we want them to be a certain way. We want them to look a certain way. We want them to behave a certain way. And we know best, and we put ourselves above. The same way we do with the natural world sometimes. With, I'll say, the rest of the natural. See, I'm doing it. I'm using language that puts me apart from the natural world instead of a part of it. Maybe if we learn how to be better siblings in a sacred relationship with nature, we can learn how to be better siblings with one another too. And not try to have power over each other, but to be in partnership, to learn from one another, to be curious first, and then see how we might contribute to something that means mutual thriving, the way that those three sisters in the garden thrive together. Learning what other people need to be, and not thinking of thriving as competition, which is why we talk about being in covenant with one another. A covenant holds us on equal ground. We all have mutual promises. We expect the same things from each other. It's not a legal thing. It's not a thing where we go and punish people because they didn't do something and we're standing over them looking down. It's a mutual eye-to-eye kind of thing. Maybe we have some kind of covenant with nature too, some kind of mutuality that we can say, you do this for me and I'll do this for you, and we'll thrive together. It means allowing our lives to be touched in some vulnerable ways, with trust that we can learn how to be healthier with one another. And I'll just say that there are some big issues in the environment, some things that seem so massive that we cannot deal with them on our own. We look at the world and we look at some of the news about the environment and the things that are happening and the things that maybe some people beyond our pay grade are doing to the environment, and we think, how can we possibly even touch that? But maybe we begin to address that by looking at our relationship with the rest of nature and cultivating a different way of being that we might share more broadly than just in this room. And maybe that sacred siblinghood is what it really takes for us to change things for the better for generations to come. May we have the courage and wisdom to do so. I'm going to invite Donna Hertzberg forward to share a reflection, but also to then engage us with a little bit of somatic, bodily movement to help us embody this sense of relationship with Earth. Donna?
Okay, here we go. Good morning. My name is Donna. My pronouns are she, hers, and I'm delighted to share with you some thoughts and reflections and inspiration about connecting with nature in a way where we can be siblings, where we can be touched and feel our energy slow down and ground ourselves. And I'm guessing that many of you have had experiences of maybe gazing at a tree or at a plant and tuning into that energy. And I'd like to invite us to just maybe tap into that experience. And today we'll have an opportunity to practice some of that after service, if you'll join me. So my entry point into this topic was a foraging course that I took in 2018 in Israel. I was born there, and I came to Cleveland at the age of 11. And part of my quest for finding my connection, both here and abroad, was to really find out where I belong. And so I did a PhD in folklore, and I went to Jerusalem, and I interviewed Palestinians and Israelis about their childhood memories of growing up in this divided city. And at some point, I realized I needed a deeper connection to the land, and I took this foraging course because I wanted to learn about the local plants. And so in 2018, a group of about 30 of us, high-tech people, aspiring hippies like myself, people who like to walk barefoot, we convened about once a month for a weekend at different parts of the country, different ecosystems, and we learned about what we could eat, what was edible, some of the native uses of those plants. And one of the beautiful practices, we would camp out, we'd get there Friday, camp out, Saturday morning, we would sit for something called a sit spot. And the idea was to just sit quietly and take in the environment and journal. And one activity, we paired into small, actually we had small groups, and in my small group, somebody guided us to just look at an oak tree for about 10 minutes. Now, oak trees are found in different parts of the world, and in the Mediterranean basin, because there's less rainfall, the leaves of the oaks are shinier and a little bit kind of leathery. And if you imagine late September in an environment that has some yellow and brown grasses and wheat and dark brown bark and shiny dark leaves, sitting in front of this oak and imagining what the blueprint of that oak is, the oakness of it. So it turned out that the native Palestinians who had lived in this particular village where we were camping out had been depopulated from their village in 1948. Part of my understanding of that place was also about the history of the people who cultivated these trees and ate the acorns. And we learned how to peel the acorns and take the tannins out, warm them up, and eat them. But then looking at the tree and touching the bark, that was really special. And after service today, I invite you, if you're interested, to meet me and Alan in the permaculture garden. As you exit the building to the left, we'll meet at the chess table area so that we can have a place to sit and we can practice a way of observing and then observe our observation. We'll have a chance to share that. And finally, I'd like to invite another practice today, if you'd like to try it, a way of slowing down and bringing nature into ourselves in a bodily way. And I'm wondering if anyone's ever heard of Qigong or Tai Chi. Okay, a few of you. Slow movements that come from the tradition of Chinese medicine. And in Qigong, which I think roughly translates into energy work, there is inspiration from the elements: wood, earth, fire, water. And what I'm going to invite you is to either stand or remain sitting, or you can imagine this, and I'm going to invite a movement of a tree. So I'm going to first demonstrate what I'm going to do, and then I'll invite you to see if you'd like to try. So feeling ourselves grounded, and if you can imagine the bark of a tree kind of going up and down the trunk, and then we'll be smoothing the earth and feeling our feet, feeling the roots come up, and then taking the branches and reaching out, and finally bringing in, imagining the water coming up the trunk and up to the canopy and whoosh. So maybe we can try that together if you'd like. Smoothing the earth. And feeling your weight kind of shift as you do that. Smoothing the earth. And then getting ready to come into your center and then reaching out. Feeling your energy bubble. And you're at the center of it. And your shoulders can be relaxed. And then coming back to our centeredness, bringing the water up and whoosh, watering an ecosystem that lives in us. Let's do 2 more. And last one, watering our sibling relationships. Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
And actually, you don't have to sit down just yet because we're going to do a song that is closely related by a weird coincidence. And so if you're willing and able to stand and sing, you don't need your order of service or anything else. This is a very simple, easy to learn song. And just in case you don't have everything you need from me, also Molly and Sophie and Becky are going to help me lead this music as well. So you're not going to, no matter where you are in the room, you're not very far from somebody who knows how this goes. I'll teach it to you in pieces and then we'll sing it together. The first piece goes like this. Standing like a tree with my roots dug down. Sing that, and if you're willing, then do those motions as well. Standing like a tree with my roots dug down. You know, I'm going to stand up here where everybody can see me a little more easily since I've got helpers out among anyway. The next part is my branch is wide and open. So let's do both of those together. Standing like a tree with my roots dug down, my branch is wide and open. Next part goes, come down the rain, come down the sun. Try that with me. Come down the rain, come down the sun. Come down the fruit to a heart that is open to be. So come down the fruit to a heart that is open to be, standing like a tree. Come down the fruit to a heart that is open to be, standing like a tree with my roots dug down. My branch is wide and open. Come down the rain, come down the sun. Come down the fruit to a heart that is open to be, standing like a tree with my roots dug down. My branch is wide and open. Come down the rain, come down the sun. Come down the fruit to a heart that is open to be, standing like a tree with my roots dug down. My branch is wide and open. Come down the rain, come down the sun. Come down the fruit to a heart that is open to be, standing like a tree with my branch is wide and open. Come down the rain, come down the sun. Come down the fruit to a heart that is open to be standing like a tree. Thank you.
If you're joining us online today and you have enjoyed the service or think somebody else might, please do like, subscribe, share, do all the things. And if you're here today and you think of somebody that might enjoy something about this service, be sure to do the same things when you get home. I'll remind you that Alan and I are thinking about a podcast that we will be able to interview different people in this community about their spiritual practices, maybe some things that other folks wouldn't really think of as a spiritual practice, but that is a spiritual practice for you. And we were going to start that off with some episodes that are kind of Ask Us Anything episodes. So if you have a question for Alan or I that you'd like us to kind of address publicly, then we have a link in your newsletter that you'll be able to click on, and it goes to a little Google form, and you can ask your question. So we'll screen them first. So if your question is highly inappropriate, then it won't be on the podcast. But most anything that you ask, I think we are willing to consider. The Journey spiritual development small groups are going to start this fall on Thursday evenings. It'll be after in-gathering, but there is room for you if you want to be a part of that. Just send me an email, let me know that that's something you want to do, or if you want to know more about that, I'll be happy to share that with you. We've also gotten word that this fall there are homes needed for some exchange students that are going to be in the area. These are like 16-year-old folks from different parts of the world, and if your home might be available for them, then we have some contact information that you can reach out and let some folks know that you are willing to host an exchange student this fall. I don't think it'll be for the whole year, but it'll start this fall. We do have our multi-generation religious exploration outside today, so you'll meet by the chess tables. We're preferring that you would partner up with somebody who's not in your household so that you can share some of what you observe about nature with somebody that you might not ordinarily have a conversation with. And then you can do it at home too, because it's not something that you can only do here, but you can take it home and do some similar things with your family and with your household. But before we go out there, I want to let you know that we've got a special celebration to send off Aaron Fountain in the fellowship hall during our coffee hour. Take a moment to breeze through there, get a little cake, say congratulations and bon voyage to I guess it's not really a voyage, but we'll send you off with the very utmost care and hope for what lies ahead. May we be mindful of our relationships, not just with one another, but with the planet that we share. And may we begin those relationships with curiosity and wonder and observing what is needed from us in order for there to be mutual thriving, so that we can create greater wholeness and well-being for ourselves and the world around us. Amen, and blessed be.
If you would join me in our Chalice extinguishing words on your yellow card. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine,
Thank you, thank you.